Sun is.
You know,
Always know.
where have you been?
Well,
Sure, we come on.
yeah.
Right. He hasn't taken any office. As you be so. At your back by, you should, the other, at your house?
Call this meeting to order. Say, free to wait until the forum. As far as remarks, I don't have many. I was away on holidays, so I don't know what all was going on. Although I was able and very happily present at the unveiling of the plaque for Jan Holly uptown on Thursday. Very good ceremony. The warden brought some very good comments that talked about a lot of the accomplishments that Jan has had, and recognition she's received. My comments were a little more personal about our relationship with Jan and how things were. And in fact, Vicky Last, the director for economic development of the county, a lot of hers were kind of both. Not only the accomplishments, but certainly the relationship that she had with Jan, and how proud she was of how well they work together and the things that they've done. So it was a very nice ceremony and a very nice thing to have for Jan. That was good. Land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that the land we stand upon today is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the neutral peoples. And can I get a mover and a seconder for confirmation of the agenda? Councillor Wilby and Councillor Deal. That the agenda for the regular meeting of council dated July 18th of 2023 be adopted as circulated. All those in favor? Carries. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest from any member of council this evening? Seeing none. Minutes of the previous meeting. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Chartrand, Deputy Mayor, that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East approve the following council meeting minutes as circulated, and that's the regular meeting of July 4th of 2023. Any comments or questions on the minutes? All in favor? Sure. We have our consent agenda. Is there any questions about the consent agenda as it stands? Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Blue Earth, are they going to come and visit us as well as all this information we're getting? Do you know?
My understanding was they still did have to go back and talk to us. Well, Jessica is nodding her head yes here, so she probably has a little more information than I do. But that certainly is my understanding, that the one visit they had here was just kind of a preamble more than anything else, because they didn't have a lot of information to give us at that time. And I do believe they are coming back to talk to us again.
Yeah, I believe the time frame is October, which will be looking to seek council support for moving forward.
And how important is that? Is our support for them to get their process going?
Shay, do you happen to know if that holds up their process at all, or if it's just,
in my understanding, I believe they do need
they need the support from council?
to proceed with applying for the RFP that they're trying to achieve.
Thank you.
But I can follow up on that.
I will also try and touch base with Lisa again, because it was Lisa that came to me and offered to have us go down to Stratford and see one of these, battery storage facilities that they have there. And apparently it's supposed to be very similar, so I think that would be beneficial for council to do. Councilor Sherman.
Also, too, on the same note, when they were here with their initial presentation, we were led to believe it was going to be on the Murray farm on an old gravel pit, which was rated by OMAFRA as a number 8, which meant it wasn't good to grow. My understanding now is it's moved to another farm, according to the letter, which is now taking away agricultural land, where before it was on an old gravel pit. So that kind of changes the minds of a lot of people when you all of a sudden you're taking away agricultural land versus an old gravel pit where it was initially proposed to be put on.
Right. Okay. Councilor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 25 acres of grade 1 to grade 4 land. 200 megawatt project, which is not a small project. The fact it's prime land and 25 acres of it, I don't understand why they're not doing something like this on a brownfield in London or Kitchener or Toronto or whatever, instead of on prime land, but we'll have lots of questions for them. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I agree with the sentiment about the fact that if it was gonna be class 7 or 8 land, probably a non-issue. But if it's class 1 to 4, that's certainly a lot more of a problem for me anyways.
Yeah, I had a lengthy discussion with the planner about that, and that's where I got the information, Mr. Mayor.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, so if there's no other questions on the consent agenda, then, number 7, public meetings. We have a presentation by Bill Baird. Welcome, so.
So just
Thank you.
that, Mr. Mayor, can we just get a motion to accept the consent agenda then?
Sorry,
Sorry.
mover and a seconder for the consent, moved by Councillor Fisher, second by Councillor Dalton. And all those in favor. And motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, sorry.
Welcome, Phil.
Thank you. It's,
Yeah, sorry, and Mr. Mayor, I was just gonna lead into Phil for if you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, no problem. So the purpose of our presentation tonight is update council on the activities that the MVCA is undertaking to improve the health of the watersheds located within MVCA's area of jurisdiction. Our vision is working for a healthy environment. We will highlight some of the activities that are outlined in the newsletter that is included in council package tonight. And the second point I'd like to make is the MVC mission is providing leadership to protect and enhance local water, forestry, and soil resources, excuse me. I will now turn the presentation over to Phil Beard, our general manager and secretary treasurer, to highlight some of the major activities that we're working on in 2023. Welcome, Phil.
thank you, and it's great to be back in person again. It's been too long. I can almost drive 100 miles to avoid a Zoom meeting right now. Anyway, I'll let Jessica catch up. We're on slide number 3 now. Jessica wants to get there. That's great. Thank you very much. So I'll just give you a little bit of background. The Maitland watershed, 80% of the watershed, almost 80% of the watershed is used for agriculture, and we have some of the best land in Ontario. We're down to 16% forest cover, which is declining, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we're fortunate to have some of the most productive farmland in all of Ontario. We also have some of the finest hardwood forests in Ontario. The Maitland River is one of the best smallmouth bass fishing rivers in southwestern Ontario. And of course, our Lake Huron shoreline is highly valued for recreation and tourism. These are all natural assets that help sustain the prosperity in the Maitland watershed. They're also the foundation of our life support system, along with clean air and a stable climate. Next slide, please. So MVC is working on a number of important initiatives to improve the health of the watershed. So I'm going to highlight a few of the ones that we're working on. And the first one is our coastal resiliency strategy. The purpose of this strategy is to explore ways to improve, the resiliency of the coast to a changing climate. This is a collaborative effort to connect with the shoreline community, consider what a healthier and more resilient way of living with the natural shoreline processes, both now and in the future. It'll look at how the shoreline will be shaped and change in the future. And we have a working group that started meeting on Sunday, and we'll be meeting in August as well to hear how the community values the shoreline and to discuss alternatives for living with it in the future. Next slide, please. We're also working on a forest health project. Forests are an integral part of the health of the watershed. And here's what we've learned to date. The health of our forests is at risk. Forests are losing their ability to maintain their health due to the level of stress and disturbance that's occurring. 20% of the standing trees were found to be dead. These are mainly ash trees, but other species are being impacted as well. The health of our forest is being affected by invasive insects such as the emerald ash borer and a beetle that carries beech bark disease, invasive plants like buckthorn, garlic mustard, and periwinkle, existing woodlot management practices, removal of forests. Since 2015, we've lost over 500 acres of forest, extreme wind events, and last but not least, a hotter, drier climate is putting additional stress on forests. So our next step is to work with landowners and the 4 counties that cover the Maitland watershed and the forest sector to determine how we can improve the health of forests in the face of these challenges. These are unprecedented challenges that will not be resolved quickly or easily. Next slide, please. I will get to some good news, don't worry. Healthy watersheds, people and wildlife. So MVCA is working with a number of groups and agencies to break down the silos between environmental, human, and animal health. We're working with these groups to develop a One Health approach that will focus on ensuring the health of the land and everything that lives on it is healthy. So MVCA is working on the development of the environmental pillar of this approach, and we'll be meeting with agencies such as OMAFRA and the Health Unit in 2023 to discuss how we can work together to improve the health of our environment, people, and animals. The One Health approach has been identified as a way to reduce the risk of future infectious disease outbreaks by focusing on the root cause of these outbreaks, which is the health of our environment. Next slide, please. So MVCA is also focused on restoring natural areas on floodplains, river valleys, and along water courses. There are over 6,500 hectares of floodplains, river valleys to be restored as natural areas, and 1,300 kilometers of stream buffers. Next slide, please. We're also working with the agricultural community to incorporate some important changes to farming systems. Hotter, drier, and longer summers is increasing the risk of drought and intense rainfall events, and warmer and wetter winters means more rain, and rapid snowmelt events is increasing the risk for soil and nutrients to be washed off the land and into water courses. So 2 of the key changes that we're working on with farmers are rural stormwater management systems, which help to slow the runoff, spread it out, and allow it to sink into the ground, and cover crops. They help to reduce the risk of soil and nutrients from being washed away over the winter months. And thanks to the Huron County Clean Water Project, we were able to provide grants for them to try a lot of these practices. Next slide, please. MVCA is working with a number of companies and municipalities to identify ways each of us can reduce the use of fossil fuels and to sequester carbon by planting trees and shrubs and wildflowers on their properties. The Carbon Footprint Initiative was established in 2012 by Deb Schufelt, former mayor of Goderich and former chair of Maitland Valley, back in 2012. Next slide, please. So over the past 3 years, people across the watershed have rediscovered the value of spending time in nature. Our conservation areas have experienced a significant increase in by the public for walking, fishing, bird watching, biking, camping, canoeing, swimming, and picnicking. Next slide, please. So to help accommodate the increase in use and improve the experience for the public, MVCA has been gradually improving infrastructure on our conservation areas. We've constructed a new bridge and boardwalk at Naftals Creek Conservation Area, which is located south of Goderich, and new washrooms and signage at Lake Wawanosh Conservation Area. And the new washrooms are outhouses, but we still got hundreds of emails thanking us for putting new outhouses in. I never thought I'd hear that. So we wouldn't have been able to improve this infrastructure without the support of our member municipalities and the Maitland Conservation Foundation. Next slide, please. Logan's Mill. So MVCA, as you know, is in the process of finalizing the conditions for the severance and transfer the property to the Brussels Trust. And we really appreciate the municipality support for this project. Next slide, please. Flood erosion safety. So the risk of flooding is increasing. Hotter climate holds more moisture in the atmosphere. This increased moisture can form atmospheric rivers, which can increase the risk of intense rainfall events, such as the storm that hit the north part of the Maitland watershed in June of 2017. So in June of 2017, we had 176 millimeters of rain, which is about 6 inches in 6 hours. And it caused about $10 million damage in Harrison, and about 150 homes were flooded. So now they're looking at a $23 million project to try and divert the river around the town. And we don't have the programs that we used to in the seventies and eighties to provide. Back then, it was 85% grant to be able to do projects like that. So the dilemma that they're in is the insurance companies have said, we're either gonna get no payments or we're gonna cap your payouts if there's another flood there. So they're really under the pressure to try and come up with a mitigation scheme there. So we've helped them put plans together and look at options. Next slide, please, and of course, on the shoreline, we also have some challenges. So we've been working with our 3 shoreline municipalities to identify homes and cottages at risk from bluff collapse. We've worked with a number of lakefront residents and shoreline municipalities to identify safer areas to relocate cottages where it's feasible to do so. So we did have a recent bluff collapse up in the north part of Ashfield and did work with a number of landowners to help them find safe locations to move back to. So last but not least, I'll turn it back to Councillor McClellan to do our closing remarks.
Thank you, Phil. So in closing, the NVCA members thank council for their support in 2023, and we look forward to working with you on the environmental challenges that we're dealing with. If council is interested in learning more about any of these initiatives that we have outlined this afternoon, please feel free to contact myself or Phil. We would be happy to organize a session to discuss them in more detail. Thank you. Any questions from council at all?
Yeah, Phil, I'm on the Asaba Conservation, and I know we've done over the years an extensive shoreline management. A tedious task with the public and owners, and we finally did come to a resolution of what we've got. So I would assume that you collaborate with them.
Yeah.
And the things that they're already got in place and what the rules and regulations are.
Yeah, we share Central Huron, so we certainly want to make sure things are. We just started into the public process. So we have 800 cottages, homes along the shoreline, so we've got a lot of people to engage. And it's going to be a long, slow process.
And a very emotional one too.
Yes, because I think as everybody knows, you can't just, in most places, you can't just pick up a cottage and move back. But you also can't just go ahead and stick things out into the water that's going to impact your neighbors. So it's going to be a challenging process. So we've
learned a lot from that. I'm sure that that information would help you along the way.
Definitely. Yeah, that's going to be a interesting challenge.
Any other questions? So I just had one, in your presentation, you talked about the elm trees, and it was close to a decade ago that the elm disease had come through here in county.
No, the ash borer.
Oh, sorry, that was the ash borer. But I'm told now this year there's a problem with oak trees, and it can be pretty serious.
Oak wilt is what it's called, but it's apparently heading our way. But we don't have a lot of oak. We're more concerned about the maple trees. They're the dominant tree in our forest now. If the what's it called, the Asian longhorn beetle that they contained in Toronto, if it ever got loose, like maple is 40% of our forests. If that ever got, our forest would be in real trouble. So
I know one farm down by Hensel, and he's got it's a nice house estate on his farm, but he's got 16 oak trees, and he says 12 of them are showing signs of it already.
oh, really? I didn't know it was up this far.
Yeah, and now he did a little research, and he was told, and maybe this is the information that people need to hear, is that although he sees the disease on the tree now, don't cut the branches off this time. He was told by somebody to wait till fall.
Okay.
And more chance of the tree possibly surviving. Yeah, some of these trees are, well over 100 years old that are being affected.
Yeah, we do have some burrow in our floodplain areas, but it's not as dominant as some of the other species that are being impacted, like beech. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge to try and get our forests back to a healthy state.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. Great to see everybody again.
Our next delegation this evening is David and Vanessa Schlump. Welcome.
Hello, thanks a lot for letting me speak here today. Basically, yeah, I'm rebuilding the old sixplex in Ethel. I got a permit from Huron East to rebuild the old sixplex in Ethel, and throughout construction as they were setting trusses, and Hydro One all of a sudden came in and said, hey, what's going on here? You're way too close and all this stuff. And they wanted to see my building permit, so I sent that in, and they're just like, well, this is just simply too close, and we had to get safety wires on the wires right away. That was $2,000, and then they basically did an initial quote, and it's pretty bad. They have to move 5 hydro poles, and the quote right now is 116,000 plus or minus 50%. So at this point, I've just paid the $10,500 fee to get the accurate quote. So they're gonna go into it deeper, and they've done a deeper dive on their end about the situation and the cost and everything. And they just said, basically, yeah, that's 100% my responsibility, and it's too close and it's got to be moved. And they didn't have any interest or care that it was an existing building getting rebuilt, and they just said rules have changed over the years, and you're within our 4.8 meter setback that's required to build. So yeah, I'm in a pretty bad spot. the construction and the building itself is obviously, yeah, so yeah, it's become a very expensive project now, and I'm not really sure what to do, and I just wanted to make council aware of what I'm dealing with. And Hydro One's kind of, yeah, they're they basically said, yeah, they're not interested. They don't want to do anything about it. Like they said, we're going to get you an initial quote, an accurate one now, that I paid the fee, but at this point, there's just no, yeah. Like, I've tried explaining to Hydro One, it's an existing building, I'm rebuilding it, it's been there for years and years, and yeah, they just. So I thought I would make council aware, obviously, because I received a building permit from here, and yeah, I'm not really sure what to do. And obviously I could desperately use some help with the cost, because there's no other way around it. Like, this is what they have to do, and I'm not, yeah, I always need hydro, so.
Councillor Deal?
David, where are they moving the poles? Like taking them across the road, or what are they doing with them?
Yeah, that's the part I don't know exactly yet, but apparently they have to move 5. And I simply suggested, well, can't you just bury the section in front of the building? And they
Well,
said,
that
well,
was my question too. Put it under-
but that's the thing with Hydro One, you can't really, like, they're gonna do what they have to do, like, I'm, like,
This
you
has
know,
gotta
like
be
you-
done and you're holding the bag.
well, yeah, and they're 100%, and I said to them, I'm like, well, it's been there for so long, and why wasn't this, like, they could have notified the township when they disconnected it and said, this can't be reconnected or whatever, but yeah, in talks with Brad Dietrich, we were always just concerned about the soil tests and making sure the septic was good, and we investigated the foundation, and I guess the hydro was overlooked, but I never, yeah,
Whose responsibility is that?
It is actually the property owner.
The hydro is?
It's not ours. Ours is a building permit. So we have certain criteria of things that you have to have in place before, but whether you have hydro on your property or not, that's nothing to do with the municipality. Separate agency altogether. Councillor Sharkar?
Yeah, like I'm thinking, like, the fact that it was there for so long, like, why isn't it grandfathered? You hear that term a lot on buildings. And number 2, can there be an application for a minor variance like we have when we do a severance or setbacks and that type of stuff? Is there some kind of an appeal process or a minor variance that you could approach Hydro One? I don't know.
yeah, it's just, yeah, these are the new the new setbacks and that's what you have to meet nowadays and I guess. Yeah,
But you can't move the building's there, right?
no, that's just it, right? Like, and had I, yeah, I guess I didn't know. And just like you're saying, and no one, everyone's reaction is the same. It was there before. Why isn't it grandfathered? But
David, did you say when you started your presentation that it had been disconnected and now you need to get it connected back up?
well, it was probably disconnected for like, I don't know, since 95-ish or.
Yeah.
See, my concern is that that's maybe what they're looking at is they don't consider that it had hydro because it's been disconnected for so long. I know when we have, a building that we maybe don't want in a certain spot, after, if the business is shut down, if it's shut down for 2 years, we no longer have to allow those businesses back up and running. So it sounds like they're looking at this as a new installation altogether. I'm not saying
Right,
it's right.
so it's irrelevant that it's an existing building, because they're saying it's existing, but it has not hydro and.
I'm just reading between the lines based on what I've heard. I don't know this for a fact.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
Councilor Stefan?
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. I have two small comments. Would this be something our building inspector should have, I know it's not our responsibility, but you know, does this every day to kind of make the property owner aware? And second of all, have you saw a legal? Anything on the legal side of things?
Well, at this
Protect
point,
yourself.
I just did a deep dive with Hydro One to see if there's anything they can do, and they just kind of, they shut it down. Look, well, they said they looked into it, but unfortunately, that's the case, and then. Obviously, I wanted to make council aware for advice or help, but yeah, that's, I mean, the next step, but. Before you go to a lawyer, he costs money too, and then I'm even more. Even deeper into
I'm
this.
surprised with the trend of always putting now all the hydro underground. I mean, that's the new norm now. They can't accomplish that there.
Yeah,
That doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Although we don't know what's gonna come back in the report that he's just paid to have done.
Yeah,
As far as the municipality, no, again, you can get a building permit for a house. And your Hydro One connection has nothing to do with the municipality.
Correct, yeah.
So that's separate paperwork altogether. You can build a house that doesn't have hydro.
Correct.
So we don't look into the Hydro One, that's the property owner's responsibility. That's my understanding.
That's fair.
Our staff.
When did you purchase the property?
like last year.
And was it disclosed anything in the offer purchase and sale in regard?
No, it's obviously an old building as is. I guess my first thing was talk to Huron East about rebuilding it, and then they said, you know, like do your soil test for that and get the foundation checked out and away we go. So I don't think beyond that. I just see, oh, hydro's close, whatever, it'll be cheap to connect. It's not the case at all now. I just, yeah.
Deputy Mayor?
I was just gonna say, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through just a general comment. I wonder if there was any way that Huron East could, either through the administration or through Brad Dietrich, if we could sort of, you know, pull some strings or at least put some weight into what David is saying here, like talk to Hydro One and see if there can work out some sort of compromise to help him do that, because it sounds like right now Hydro One's dealing with an individual, you know?
Yeah.
And was just wondering if there was any way we can get some more weight behind that, like Huron East as well?
Then I would suggest at this point, if in fact, whether it be our building inspector or whether it be the CAO make a phone call. We would have to have a letter from David, because we're not the property owner.
No.
And Hydro One would say, I have no reason to talk to you.
yeah.
So we would have to have some sort of documentation from you authorizing the municipality to inquire on your behalf. And that's really the way it should be
Okay.
worded, not any stronger than to inquire on your behalf.
Okay, yeah. No, I can do that.
When is Brent?
He's back on Tuesday.
Okay. I would suggest, I realize we have a building inspector, but again, he's not the one that normally has to deal with hydro wall, with this type of stuff. And Brad's had some pretty good contacts, so Askey may be the better person to make a phone call like this. When you phone David, where do you phone to?
For hydro,
Yeah, whoever you've been talking to, where is it you make phone calls to?
like Clinton, the Clinton Hydro One office,
Okay,
yeah. They're the ones organizing the layout, but now that's delayed big time because they gotta relocate all these poles. But yeah, just. The way they're doing it, it just seems so like the most expensive route possible. I don't know. I don't know. It's like, you know, 5-10,000 is the cost of business, but this is just, yeah, this is definitely rattled me.
$100,000 would bother me too.
100, well, plus or minus 50%, like, I don't, like. Yeah, but yeah. Do more homework next time, I guess.
Counselor Dalton?
Well, I was just gonna ask you, did you talk to them before you started this project? Or you said they come in, like, was this partway through your project, they showed up?
No, like I said, I wasn't aware of, like,
Well,
I
so you
just
hadn't
kind of,
talked to them.
no, I haven't talked to them, no.
Okay.
I went to the township to get a permit and I didn't think. Yeah, like I saw it was connected before and.
Yeah.
And
Same.
yeah, all right, well, it's,
If you get us the letter, we will ask the CAO to make
Okay.
a call on your behalf to see if there's anything that can be addressed.
okay, thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
I have 7.3 Committee of Adjustment Public Hearing.
So we just need the motion to close our regular meeting and then go into our public meeting.
Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Deal, second by Councillor Wilby, that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East adjourn the regular meeting of Council at 6:32 p.m. to go into public hearing of the Committee of Adjustment to discuss the following: A minor variance application MV 06-2023 for 660 Turnberry Street, Brussels, and B a minor variance application MV 07-2023 for Plan 596 blocks 34, 35, and 44 in Brussels. All those in favor? Motion carries. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the agenda for the public meeting? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Steffler, that the agenda for the public hearing of the Committee of Adjustment dated July 18th, 2023 be adopted as circulated. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest for this portion of the meeting? Seeing none. Turn it over to the clerk.
So just the provisions under the Ontario Regulation 54506 of the Planning Act. 1, if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of Huron East before the bylaws are passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the municipality of Huron East to local planning appeal tribunal. And if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of Huron East before the bylaws are passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal to the tribunal unless in the opinion of the tribunal there are reasonable grounds to do so. And then at this point, I can turn it over to Shay Stoll, who will go over our minor variance applications.
Welcome, Shay.
Thank you, Mayor, and members of council. Just give Jessica a second to pull our slides. So the first application I have today is file MV 06-2023. The owner and applicant is John Henry, and it applies to 660 Turnberry Street in Brussels. Next slide. So just for context, an aerial photo of the subject property. So we're in Brussels, just south of the downtown core. The subject property contains an existing single attached dwelling and a single story garage. Next slide, please. So the purpose of the application is to permit an accessory building which will exceed the maximum lot coverage of all accessory buildings. So one variance is being sought in this case to increase the maximum lot coverage for all accessory buildings from 10% to 12%. The subject property is zoned low density residential and designated residential in the Huron East official plan. And no concerns were received from staff or other agencies at the time of report submission. So just a site sketch to show the proposed location of the shed. So it's in the top left, top right corner there, towards the west property line. Next slide, please. And then just a site photo showing, again, the location of the proposed shed. So looking towards the west property line, you can see the footprint of the previous existing or the previous accessory building that was torn down, and that's where it's proposed to be located. Next slide. So in reviewing the policy, we just checked that the minor variance satisfies the 4 tests of the Planning Act. So it meets the intent of the Huron East official plan, as the subject lands are designated residential and within the primary settlement area of Brussels. Attached accessory building such as utility shed is considered a normal permitted accessory use to residents and continues to maintain the residential use of the property and surrounding neighborhood character. The proposed use of the shed is for personal use in conjunction with the residential use of the subject lands. And the proposal meets the intent of the Huron East zoning bylaw, as the property zone R1, which allows for accessory structures. The proposal otherwise meets all applicable zoning bylaw provisions. The accessory structure will not exceed the overall lot coverage of 35% for the entire lot, and will still maintain the required 30% landscape open space. So while these provisions are not seeking relief from the bylaw, the effect does increase the hardened surface of the property. So as such, it's recommended that a condition be attached that addresses the additional stormwater runoff and mitigation measures for the new shed. And this will be to the satisfaction of the chief building official. And then finally, the proposal is desirable for the appropriate development of the land and is minor in nature, as part of an established residential neighborhood. The proposal is in keeping with similar accessory structures found throughout the neighborhood, and the proposed size of the shed is needed to meet the storage needs of the owner. Any impact, as I mentioned, caused to drainage or runoff from the accessory building will be addressed through a condition. And the variance still allows for adequate access and maintenance of the property. Next slide, please. So it is recommended that the minor variance application MV 06/2023 be approved with the following conditions. So the standard 18 months approval, that the accessory building be constructed as per the sketch submitted with the application, and the condition that stormwater runoff considerations be addressed to the satisfaction of the chief building official. And I'm happy to answer any questions about that. There.
Shay, in your report, you commented that you didn't get any feedback from other agencies. Did you get anything from the public?
No public comments on this one.
Okay, I'm asking this question because late this afternoon, I didn't have time to address it, but I did receive an email from somebody in Brussels. They did leave their phone number. They didn't say what their problem was.
Okay.
But they said they had a problem with the application tonight for the lot coverage.
Okay.
But they didn't give me any other details, and I didn't have time before I got here tonight to address it. So I will forward that through to Jessica,
Yeah.
and she can forward it to you. I don't know how that affects what we're doing tonight. Or does it?
I suppose it would have to do with the nature of the comment. I can reach out to the neighbor and see what their concern is. I'm not sure, Jess, if you have any further direction if they.
I don't think it affects passing the motion. We generally hear comments from the public at the time of public hearings, and we can still pass the motion. If the general comment is lot coverage, I can kind of add that into the motion, and staff would then continue to work with the resident to make sure everything can still align with the conditions of the application.
Minor variance still goes to county?
No.
It doesn't, it's just here.
Yes.
I don't want to sidestep if someone had a valid concern. That's my only thing. And unfortunately, I only got this late today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can follow up too and see what their concern is. Hopefully it can be something that can be addressed just by explaining.
Okay.
the application in a little more detail, but
Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When someone asks for a minor variance, the neighbors are made aware of that, aren't they?
yes, and there
So
was,
this neighbor has had plenty of time to get a hold of us and drop the ball, so to speak.
yes, the notice was circulated within the prescribed amount of time. And I noted that the notice was posted on the property when I went out to send it as well.
Thank you.
So any other questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Stepler.
Just one clarification question, Mayor. Did you just get the notice today or you're just getting back from holidays today and getting it?
No, I'm pretty sure it was dated for today.
Thank you.
It was right near the top of my email list anyways.
Okay, no, I can hear about that. I just didn't know if you were just getting back and it was, yeah.
I'm sure that the letter that neighbors, all the neighbors get, because when I had my minor variance, all my neighbors got the letter and showed me the letter. There was actually a time frame on there when they had their input by, right?
Yeah, that's correct. The notice does.
Certificate has a date.
So it
Actually,
would have noted that.
I
today was
think for clarification, I think the email I got was from the office that said they'd received a voicemail on my behalf today, and it had the phone number to return the call. So I don't know when the voicemail came, but the office contacted me today, so my assumption is the voicemail came today also.
Correct.
Yeah. Councilor McGrath.
Excuse me, is that the appropriate action? If you want to bring questions forth for the minor variance, should that not go to Shay or
Yes,
to the municipal office
yes.
rather than go to you?
Yes, it should.
So to me, it's reached out to have a problem, but reached out to the wrong people. It should have come to the office or to Shay to address it.
Yeah, the right date.
Not that they shouldn't talk to your worship.
Okay, at this point then, any comments or questions from members of the public? Any comments or questions from the applicant? Is the applicant here? No, okay. Then can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Deal, second by Councillor Wilby, that the council of the municipality of Huron East, acting as committee of adjustment, has held a public meeting pursuant to section 45 of the Planning Act 1990 with respect to minor variance application MV 06-2023, where no comments from the public were received and whereas no agency comments were received. Now therefore, the committee of adjustment approves the minor variance application MV 06-2023 Plan 192 in part lot 402 Brussels 660 Turnberry Street to permit the following variance from bylaw 52 of 2006. One, that the variance applied is valid for a period of 18 months from the date of the committee's decision. Two, the proposed accessory building be constructed as part of the sketch submitted with the application. And three, stormwater runoff considerations from the new structure be addressed to the satisfaction of the chief building official. And I'm just wondering what.
So that's to the next one.
Okay.
So that's that motion and then the highlights for the next.
Okay, all those in favor? And motion carries. I need to put stop in there, just like
Okay.
telegram, so.
Stop, new application.
Go ahead, Shay.
Thank you very much. So this next file is minor variance application 07-2023. The applicant and owner of the property is municipality of Huron East, and it applies to plan 596, blocks 34, 35, and 44 in the Brussels ward. This is just an aerial photo of the subject property. So highlighted in red or shaded in red there is the area to which the variance applies. Next slide, please. So the purpose of the variance today is to address a technical zoning issue associated with application Z06-2022. The variance seeks to deem the longer lot line on each of the four effective lots on Brian's Drive and Anderson Drive to be the front lot line in order to permit adequate row house design. So these subject lands were previously subject, as I mentioned, to rezoning applications 06-2022 to rezone the property to a R3 special zone to allow for row house properties. And yeah, so the subject property is currently vacant with an existing front subdivision, and the area to which the variance applies is 0.9 acres in the center portion of it. Showed previously. No concerns were received from staff or other agencies at the time of short submission. Next slide, please. So this is the site sketch from the zoning amendment from last year, just outlining the blocks that are affected by the variance here. And you can see that the intended rezoning was to allow for up to 6 unit row houses. And next slide, please. It's just like total for context, during the property as it is today, there's been no development on the property. I believe all the lots, center blocks have been sold. So the variance was initiated as we got a site concept sketch in, reviewing it for zoning compliance, and notice that the front lot line is deemed to be the shorter lot line. Next slide, please. So again, in reviewing the minor variance, we see that the variance meets before test of the Planning Act. So it meets the intention of the Huron East Special Plan as residential development, including a variety of housing types, such as row houses, are directed to settlement areas. And the Huron East Special Plan outlines several goals for intensification, encouraging new housing development and higher density development to the primary settlement area. The proposal meets the intent of the Huron East zoning bylaw as applications of 6/2022 amended provisions on the previous zoning to permit higher density development, including 6 unit row houses. And each of the 4 associated blocks are cornered lots with frontage on 2 streets. So the zoning bylaw deems the shorter of the 2 lot lines to be the front yard and presents a constraint in the row house design on the associated lots. The proposal to deem the longer of the 2 lot lines will address the design constraint and allow for more efficient row house design. As such, the proposal maintains the intent of the zoning bylaw. And lastly, the proposal is desirable and appropriate for the development of the lands and is minor in nature, as the issue is associated with the previous zoning application, which maintains the intent of the zoning. And next slide, please. So it's recommended that the minor variance application MB07 be approved, and you'll notice that I'm not attaching a condition to this variance as it is municipally initiated and will not provide a time constraint should the lots not be developed within the prescribed time. As previously noted at last council, it suggested that the definition of a front lot line on a corner lot be updated in a future housekeeping item to allow the municipality to deem either lot line to be the front lot line in cases such as this. I'm here for any questions on that. Let's go.
Any questions from members of council this time?
Any from the applicant?
Let's see, any questions from members of the public on this application? And no, to the best of my knowledge, the applicant doesn't have any questions either. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? By Councilor Chartrand, second by Councilor Dalton, that the council of the municipality of Huron East, acting as committee of adjustment, has held a public meeting pursuant to section 45 of the Planning Act 1990 with respect to minor variance application MV 07-2023, where no comments from the public were received and whereas no agency comments were received. Now therefore, the Committee of Adjustment approves the minor variance application MV 07-2023, Plan 596, blocks 34, 35, and 44 Brussels to permit the following variance from bylaw 52 of 2006. Any comments or questions? All those in favor? And the motion carries. Can I get a mover and a seconder to close the public meeting, please? Councilor Wilby, Councilor Fisher, that the public hearing be closed at 6:50 p.m. All in favor? And motion carries. We're down to planning. Whenever you're ready.
Yes. So this application is for zoning amendment that 07-2023, and it is a holding zone removal request. The applicant owner is Bruce and Rhonda Fisher. And it applies to Plan 191 for lot Y, Holiday Street, and registered plan 22R573, Part 1 in the Russell Ward. Next slide, please. So just an aerial photo of the subject lands. So we are still within the settlement area of Brussels, towards the west boundary of Huron East. And you'll notice in the slide to the right, the orange portion outlines a storm sewer easement that the property is subject to. Next slide, please. So the application is requesting to lift the holding zone applying to the subject lands to allow for the sale of the property to be used for residential development. Subject property was rezoned in July of 2026 to an R1 special zone, and the special zoning on the property recognized the sufficient frontage of property, as well as setting the front yard setback at 50 feet from Orchard Lane. As I noted, the subject property is also subject to a 40-foot storm sewer easement along the west of the property. And the holding zone symbol was placed on the land to indicate that development is not possible until such time that the unopened Halliday Street road allowance was closed and deeded to the property owner. Halliday Street was closed and the westerly half was conveyed to the owner in 2008. There's an updated survey attached with the report indicating such. And as a result, the deeded road allowance the property now has access onto Orchard Lane. And as such, the holding zone can be used on the property. Next slide. Next slide. Just a couple site photos showing the location where the proposed access would be. Next slide. So no objections were received from staff at the time of report submission. Comments were received from County Public Works after my report was submitted. Just noting that an entrance permit would still be required from them. And noted a few other considerations for the owner's awareness. So they noted that the stop sign, as you can see in the last photo there, will need to be moved just a little bit down to accommodate the entrance. And they also noted that should the nearby catch basins to the storm sewer need to be removed for the entrance, this needs to be done at the owner's cost. But other than that, they have no concerns with issuing the permit. And next slide, please. So as the reason for the holding zone removal or the holding zone has been addressed, it's recommended that application that 07-23 be approved pursuant to section 36 of the Planning Act. I'm here for any further questions.
Any questions, council? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Shane. Shane, so is the easement and the entrance the same property, is it?
Yes,
Okay.
it has merged. Yeah.
Okay, so that doesn't affect the, like you can have the laneway over the easement, then that's okay to do that then, is it?
Yes, they can't, if they need to, they can't put any structures on the easement.
Right. I guess what I was getting at was say pavement or something, if they wanted to pave it.
Yes, I believe they'd be restricted to just a gravel laneway, but I would maybe defer to Barry if he has any further comments on terms of an easement, but I believe that is my
Okay.
understanding.
Yep, no, that's good. Thank you.
Just so this gentleman doesn't run into the same concerns that David had this evening, he's aware of the fact that if the drain has to be moved, he's responsible for all the costs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're made aware.
Any other questions, council, at this time? Okay, move over to seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Chartrand, second by Councillor Newell, that therefore pursuant to section 36 of the Planning Act 1990, council concurs with the July 12, 2023 planning report and recommends zoning bylaw zoning bylaw amendment application Z07-2023 for approval. All those in favor? And motion carries. Nothing under municipal drains, reports and recommendations of municipal officers.
So I just have one report here. Going through the schedule of meetings, it was noted when we approved them in 2023, the that the September 19th meeting would be recommended to have in Brussels due to the Brussels Fall Fair. At that time, though, we were under the impression that the BMGCC would be completed. At this time, it's not now scheduled until October, November. So I'm just seeking direction from council on how they'd like to go forward with this. We could move up the start time. I was looking at the Brussels Fall Fair schedule. And just noted kind of that in the report that opening remarks are for 7. However, there is a dinner scheduled at 5:30, so just trying to take into consideration some quorum issues. So one option could be that we move up the start time to 4:30, still have it in town hall. It's also been suggested since that we could use the Brussels Public Library, so we could go that route. Or we could cancel, or we could hold it after the opening ceremonies as well. I believe in the past, it used to be after the ceremonies at the BMG Center, but just considering the renovations. And worth a note that 2024, we will have it in the schedule that will hold that fall fair meeting in Brussels at the BMG Center. So just seeking direction on what council would like to do for that September 19th meeting. I'd also note that if it is held in Brussels, just for public awareness, we wouldn't be having a live stream or Zoom options for anybody at that meeting, as a center outside of town hall wouldn't be able to accommodate that right now.
Comments from council, Councilor Chartres.
We've held it before at the Brussels library and it worked out fine. I mean, you're right, we can't have the technology there, but we can still hold a meeting there.
I have absolutely no problem. In fact, I think I was the one who suggested the Brussels Library to begin with. My question is, with the fall fair going on, will anybody show up for it? Or are we better off being here and streaming? Deputy Mayor?
Well, the one thing about, thank you, Mr. Mayor, the one thing about, if you do have it in Brussels, it's a good excuse for all council to maybe pop in and have a look, even if they just walk through once.
That's true.
Either before or after. Yeah, I think that's important for us to be seen. So that's why I would choose to see it held one way or the other, either before or after, I don't care, but I think it should still be in Brussels.
I still like the idea of doing it before the opening of the spring fair, the fall fair, sorry. What time should we start meeting? Diane?
Well, some will have a conflict if we go any earlier than 4:30, but some of us will want to make the dinner, so.
I'm gonna suggest, oh yeah, if you wanna make the dinners at what time?
5:30 is what the schedule says. And opening ceremonies is 7.
We can still have it at 7:30, couldn't we?
Historically, that's what we've done, 7:30 start.
Yeah, I guess the question is, how much is going to be on the agenda then? That's all it comes down to. I don't have any problems 7:30.
Yeah.
That work for everybody else? Okay, then I need a motion.
Change the start time of regular council on September 19th to 7:30 PM at the Brussels Library.
And I need the mover and seconder. Councillor Fisher, Councillor Deal. For the Council of Municipality of Huron East, will direct staff. Change the start time of the regular council meeting on September 19th, 2023. To 7:30 PM, and then it will be held at the Brussels Library. All those in favor? And motion carries. The amendment to the borrowing bylaw. There seemed to be an awful lot of paperwork. Loans and stuff in this package, more than I wanted to read.
Hi, Mayor and Council. This report is to provide an explanation for the amendment to the borrowing bylaw. The increase is to cover financing of the current year projects as per the approved budget. These projects are moving forward as planned, like they're currently moving forward. Also, just while I'm up here, I want to mention the construction loan bylaw for the MGCC is to cash flow the project until substantial completion. And then this will roll into a 20-year debenture as budgeted in 2022. Once substantial completion happens.
The question I have is, so the bank began to up their rates last week.
Yeah.
Has the province changed theirs already?
I inquired about the rates yesterday and I haven't heard back. I'm gonna assume so. The last rates I had were from January.
Okay.
The provincial rates are usually a little bit better than what you can get to the bank or anything else,
Oh, I agree. Yes.
but I'm going to assume that they are gonna be higher than what I had anticipated.
Right. Okay. Any other questions of council this time? Councillor Fisher?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is 52 the Stacy, please, Mr. Mayor, is bylaw 52 the $1 million increase?
That's when I get that.
No, for like 2 seconds.
No.
52 is the construction loan bylaw and 53 is the amendment to the borrowing bylaw.
That's the $1 million increase.
Yes,
From 2 to 3.
yes.
Okay, 53, I'm biting my tongue on, but 52, I'm having a lot of trouble with, Mr. Mayor, when we don't have numbers of how much we're gonna end up borrowing. It says $1 million, almost $1,900,000. Initially, I thought it was gonna be $1.2 million, and then I had a discussion with Mr. McRoberts when we were doing the budget, and I thought he said $1.6 million. And now we're at $1.9 million. I don't like that. And I would like to know how much we're gonna borrow, what the term is gonna be, and different options, 10-year, 15-year, and 20-year. If we go 20 years, we will pay more in interest than the amount of the loan. And I don't wanna put that onus on 5 more councils. So I would ask that number 52 be deferred until our next meeting or next meeting after that, whatever it takes, so we can have accurate numbers to make decisions on, please.
Okay, so we're dealing with just the one for the million to, or from 2 to 3 million here at this point, right?
This
This-
report only addresses, sorry.
Sorry, I think he's referring to the debenture.
Yeah,
Yep.
but that's not part of this motion, correct?
This is just information, or just to give you some background on the two bylaw.
We don't have a report on the construction loan bylaw. We just have an information report as to why these two bylaws were coming on the agenda.
Well, there was a report, because I do remember the figure that Councillor Fisher talking about, there was.
It's a part of the
1.86.
bylaw, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it was a part of the actual bylaw as part of Schedule B to that bylaw.
So that is the number that staff are asking for at this point to be borrowed for the completion of the renovation.
That is correct. That's the construction loan, and that's the amount that was scheduled to be debentured.
Okay, to follow up on what Councillor Fisher was saying, I do believe that from day one till now, it changed, but maybe I'm incorrect, but I thought the last time it was discussed here and in the council chambers, it was at 1.8 then. Do you know where that when that 1.8 figure came into play, Stacey?
I think it was around June. I was trying to find the report on that because I have a report from June that has the initial cost, and then there was 5.075 million in total, and then there was an additional cost of 2.695 million, which put an additional 1.251 million that we were going to debenture. The original debenture amount for us was supposed to be 638,000. So that put the full debenture up to 1.8 million.
And you had that report in June.
Oh, sorry, I have it here, September 15th, 2021, motion to debenture the additional amount. So the additional amount was 1.251. The original amount of 638,000 would have been prior to that.
So is this figure, those two numbers put together?
That's correct.
Oh, okay, so we actually knew about this 10 months ago then.
September 15, 2021. Yeah, That's more.
22 months ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Your follow-up, Counselor Fisher.
Couple of those numbers are new to me. Try to remember as much as I can, Mr. Mayor. But as I stated already, I would like to defer this until our next meeting so that we have accurate numbers. And we can decide on 10-year, 15-year, or 20-year. And is there some way of borrowing some of this money internally? From the trusts or from our reserves? Like, listening to this 3 times today. There is temporary loans and there's a debenture. So if we could borrow internally and pay off the temporary loans expediently, we wouldn't be locking up money for 10, 15, or 20 years. So I would like to see if there are other options again. So we're not laboring future councils with large debt payments.
Okay, now, if I understand correctly, Stacy, when the province lends us money or during construction process, it's at half the rate that they normally lend money out, I do believe, but you can only use that money until the job is completed.
And then you roll it to a debenture.
Right,
So
but-
I'm asking for a construction loan right now.
Right, but
Because
that's, so
we're
that's,
cash flowing the project and we need,
right, okay, so what is that rate at this point?
again, I don't have the current rates. I
Oh,
have
you
them
asked him,
as,
didn't get it.
I brought it on January, it was 4.75 on January 27th.
That was in construction or that was the?
That's construction.
That was, okay. It's gone quite a bit.
Now, I know we had planned for a 20-year debenture, and some things to consider is if you do less, then you are increasing your annual payments, which will put extra burden on the taxpayers. And we also are legislatively restricted to the percentage of our revenue that we can put towards debenture payments, which would impede our ability to possibly get debentures in the future if we needed funding in the future. So I know we're really not talking about the debenture yet because we're talking about the construction loan, but I think there's a lot to consider when we're going from like a 20-year to a 10-year. We had planned a 20-year for the purpose of allocating those monies over time, obviously, so we're not burdening taxpayers at a high rate for 10 years, and then also to make sure that we're in the legislative requirements.
So a couple of things, Councillor Fisher. One, the money is for just job flowing. It has nothing to do with whether it's 5, 10, or 20 years. In fact, that doesn't get determined, I think, until March of 2024.
No, we'll have 120 days from the date of receiving these funds. And if this bylaw goes through today, we will receive the funds on August 15th.
So 120 days from then.
Then, yeah,
Okay, I thought when I read the thing today, it said completion or something about
a substantial completion.
March of 2024. Yeah. Okay, there was something in there about that, but maybe it's in a different report. I don't know. Okay, anyway, so there is, we can ask, as Councillor Fisher wanted to have a discussion at a future meeting, because none of that's being decided tonight, Councillor Fisher, of what the term will be for this payback. This is only just to be able to carry on with the project at this point.
May I ask a couple more questions, Mr. Mayor, please? Thank you. Stacy, you talked about funds, pay the current bills. That's what you're borrowing, you
Yes.
want to borrow?
Yes,
That's not part of the 1.89 million?
but that
That
is the
is the
1.89.
So then,
The 100,000 is for all the short-term financing that we had put in the 2023 budget.
the million, you mean?
Pavilion, yes.
No, I'm talking arena.
1.8, yeah.
I'm talking, yes, okay. So you. Okay, the 1.89.
Yeah.
You're not borrowing part of it right now.
No, we are going to take 1.89 million as a construction loan right now. And then roll that into a debenture.
So it's
So
a
if we
short.
take it as a construction loan right now,
Mhm.
it's gonna be well over 5%. And then roll that into a debenture that we have no idea what it's gonna be. I can't do that, I'm sorry, I want numbers. Yeah, I would not be comfortable at all with saying, go ahead and take out a loan and it could be 7%, it could be 6.5%. I would like to know the amount and the payments and again, comparable to a 15-year or a 10-year, because you can't,
Well, the
Get out of
15 or
these
10
problems
years,
slowly.
you get to the debenture.
Pardon
That's
me?
not, the 15 or 10 years, what we'll deal with the debenture. This is the construction loan to get us through to the end of the construction.
then I'm not understanding, I'm sorry.
So there's a short-term loan just to pay the contractors till the job is done.
Yeah, that's the $1 million.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's the 1.89. But at the end of the construction job, at that point, council has to make a decision now. We turn it over to the debenture, to whatever amount we want. If we want to borrow from ourselves, then we can pay some of it off at that point, because we're actually closing out one of the loans. And we would only borrow as much as we wanted to. We can also then determine whether we want to pay it back in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And there's a lot of arguments both ways. I understand your comment about the interest, Bob. There's also the comment about the fact that future generations will be paying the bill and they'll be the ones at that time using the facility. So there's a lot of things to discuss going forward.
for clarification, please, I asked explicitly if the 1.89 was going to be used to pay the current bills, and you said no.
It's going to pay the BMGC construction bills, yes,
The current ones,
yes.
All of them.
like tomorrow's whatever. So then in 120 days, shouldn't we have some of our own funds that we don't need 1.89?
I'm not
We
sure.
cash flowed that so far, like. At this point. We need the money to finish the project.
Yeah.
And.
Okay.
Councillor Dalton.
Thank you. So I would call that an operating loan. That we're getting to operate on, and then at the end of that, we have to lock it in.
Yeah, we do.
So right now, we're using it as an operating loan. And
It's
does that
specifically-
interest rate fluctuate?
Hmm?
Is there a floating interest rate?
No, it's a separate,
So it's a locked-in operating loan. So is there a term on that operating loan, like say 3 months?
it's 120
And
days.
then we have to lock it in.
And then we have to roll it, and I believe we have to roll.
So it is an operating loan. We need that money to operate this. And then we're gonna turn it into a loan
Mhm.
or a debenture.
You do have to roll in the whole amount.
I believe you do. I can double check that, but it was my understanding that we had to roll it.
I think it's easier to
I don't
understand
think
it's
we-
operating.
Can't pay that.
I don't think we have the money to reduce that amount.
We're gonna borrow up to that in this operating loan, and then we have to turn it in.
Councillor McGrath.
Have we not got some way at this table that we can take 1.9, I don't know where our debentures are, or sorry, our reserves. But we're talking short-term finance here. And we not take that money, pay these bills, we know whether we've got the money come back. At the end of the day, instead of 1.9 or whatever million we got, let's say it comes in 1.6, that's wishful thinking, mind you. Then we can go to get the loans, is this, I don't know.
We've explored those options.
I know we've explored it, but I know, and for
Funds.
some political reasons, we seem to boycott it for some reason, but to me, it sits in the bank as a reserve account. It was meant for things like this, so to me, go to the reserves, you sold you all so much out of here, there and everywhere else. Pay the damn bill. When it's done, go what the money you need to get back in, go for your debenture. Pay all the reserves back.
That's for sure.
So if I'm hearing what you're saying, for example, if we were to borrow the $1.9 million from the sewer and water reserves to complete the construction of the arena, then when it comes time to the debenture to pay back what we borrow from the sewer and water alone, now you're not locked into that 1.9 rollover. You can decide how much you want because you didn't borrow it in the first place for a construction loan. That's what Larry get it.
Those funds in let's say the water and sewer are not readily available, and there's some of it being used already this year and last year for construction projects. So I don't know, I mean, if we're getting back to the whole budget of reserves conversation, like Huron East needs to work on a program to better or make our reserves a little bit more robust, so we can have availability to borrow from. Usually you borrow from like your working capital reserve, but our working capital reserve is very small. And then that's how you borrow from yourself, but to borrow from restricted reserves, I don't think you can touch restricted reserves because they are restricted for certain things, and we do have those.
Because you're just borrowing it from yourself is what you're doing. If you were to borrow it from the 3 or 4 million that's in the.
Take it out of your savings account, put it in your checking.
But they're restricted and they're restricted for that.
Short term, right?
You can't.
So I'm gonna try and take a little bit of heat off Stacy here for a second. Brad and Stacy put together a budget like we've never seen before. And the bottom line is that budget showed that we were using all of our reserves that we possibly could this year to try and minimize things. And it wasn't until it was gonna be next year or the year after that before we really even started to build any of those reserves back up. We technically have already gone through all of this. We realize we don't like the numbers, but we certainly don't like where the interest rate is today. But we're 3/4 of a way through a project, and if we don't borrow the 1.89 to finish the project, what are we doing? Sending everybody home from the construction site tomorrow? Well, I already know I'm not running next time, but I'm darn sure none of you are gonna be running next time either, if that's what you try to do. So I just want to be realistic. The bottom line is, Stacy, I do disagree with one thing, and I may be wrong, and if I am, I've got no problem with being pointed out to me. After the construction term, we could, even if the government says, no, you have to roll it over into something. Well, if we thought we could come up with the money, then roll it over into a 1 year and whatever extra money we got sitting around, let's put it in a high interest bank account at this point, because it wouldn't be a lot different than the interest that we're actually paying out. So we could balance that out pretty evenly. We wouldn't be at high risk, and over the course of 1 year, you could have the whole thing balanced. I do not believe that come this fall, you're gonna find $1.89 million so that you don't have to roll it over. But staff can certainly come back between now and whether it be the next meeting, Councilor Fisher, or the meeting after that, with comments about what we should do as far as term goes, the pros and cons of what it does for the public moving forward. But I suggest we don't really have at this point any alternative, but to at least borrow this money so that we can pay the bills and carry on. Are there any other questions at this point? Councilor Fisher.
Comment, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Absolutely.
15 years ago, when we built the family health team building, we did it all internally. $1.2 million, $1.1 million.
And I do believe there was not only reserves in the municipality at that time, but we also did borrow reserves from.
We got money from both trusts, et cetera, but we did get money from water and sewer and roads. That's how we did it.
I cannot confirm the water and sewer. I'm not gonna deny it either, because I don't remember back then where we borrowed all the money, but I do know we did use it internally. But if they are restricted and we can't do it, then we can't do it, and that doesn't mean that the rules haven't changed as that either.
The accounting rules have changed since then.
Pardon me?
The accounting rules have changed since then.
Okay, okay.
PSAB, right? Or PSAB came in.
Okay. Any other comments or questions at this point? Okay, I need a, oh, there was no motion on this.
No.
Oh, it's a boring bylaw.
Yeah, getting down to when we get to the bylaws or the elections.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Chief Building Official report, year to date. I suspect that if you have any questions, Barry will be passing them on if he cannot answer them at this point. Any questions on the different?
Thank you, sir. And just a comment, maybe Jess can address it too. Is this gonna be like a biannual report moving forward? Because we went for a couple of years now without any reports at all.
We try and do the building reports, I believe, on a semi-annual or quarterly basis as just these information reports.
Okay, yeah, because we haven't had any for a while, and I did ask about it. It didn't sound like it was gonna come back, but.
Yeah, I think we had the one at the end of last year and now this one will be.
But just like the detail a little bit better, that's also like the one we have here in our package versus just the figures.
Sorry, you like this one better?
Yeah, the detailed one where the building's taking place, et cetera, so that's for Huron East.
Right.
So I like this one much better, so thank you.
Okay, so, nothing under correspondence, nothing under unfinished. We are down to council reports. County Council, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Last meeting, I don't think we had a whole lot really on the agenda. It was actually our picture day that day as well. The only thing, Barry, just a comment to you, I was talking to Steve Lund there. He had went to the road superintendent's trade show in St. Mary's, I think it was. He mentioned there was something down there. And what it is, it's like a reflective sleeve that they're putting over stop sign poles now too, so that when you're driving down the road, you can see it, like even driving perpendicular to the stop sign. It kind of illuminates that at night. He was going to use a lot of them on the Highway 83, for instance, because we're having a lot of problems with people driving through the stop sign there. I just wondered if we have, if that's something you've heard about at all, or maybe talk to him about, but he was going to give it a try on some of his high traffic roads there, just to help illuminate stop signs a little bit more, that's all.
Go ahead, Barry.
No, I haven't seen them yet. So I would say that it would have a higher impact on those county roads, those higher volumes are about. And probably more so like, you know, the 83 and airport line there, like. I drive that out quite a bit. I don't know how people get accidents there, but it's a prone natural spot for it. We have a couple of spots where we have lights on highway on the county roads that they might be applicable for. But no, I personally haven't seen it yet. I was waiting for the trade show.
Yeah, no, if you get a chance, just talk to him about it. He was kind of impressed and was certainly gonna try it out, so. Okay. I also got some comments from some farmers about not liking the stop signs being installed now, taking down the yield signs, and putting stop signs up. So the big machineries that, you know, having to come to a stop and then start back up again, but
Go ahead, Barry.
Yeah, and that's probably just very on the edge that the new stop signs that are going in right now are due to be constructed. In place or good, because we're just starting to figure out how we're gonna roll out the actual stop sign. Or yield sign replacement of the stop sign, because we've got to have a new sign, there's got to be a bit of a process, so. I was hoping to generate just a bit of a report in the future, just to give you a heads up, because that is part of our. Overall planning process from budget time type of thing, so it's not really a report to come to council, it's kind of one that. Give you information or just kind of give you a headline, but we might start at these roads and start working our way through the township and may not get through them all, but. We had that feedback the last time we did the stop sign check at all paved intersections. I even had a comment about, you know, realize what you're doing to the carbon footprint. Said, oh, can you tell me? Well, it's damaging it. Okay. I can't win.
Is the intent to change all yield signs to stop signs?
That is the intent. That was kind of the impression that I was given from the council meetings in the budget times. And even last year, I think Diane brought it up last year too.
So Stafford Road, where it's gravel there, Barry, right at the end of the curve, where you've got 6 feet high corn on all 4 corners, that's really gonna take the thrill out of there because it is only a yield sign. Was there anything else?
I believe that's everything. Thank you.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, did Steve say what the sleeves were worth?
No, I don't know whether he had a price on them or not.
Any other boards, committees, meetings, or seminars? Take care, Shay. Councillor Sharp.
Yes, I attended a public meeting last night and it was a very emotional public meeting. It's a topic that I've been bringing up now for 3 years. And it's the closure of the Seaforth retirement home. You guys had a meeting back in January with Lisa Thompson and Southbridge. All we got from that was, it was a good meeting. Well, if that was a good meeting, when you go online right now to the Ontario Long-Term Licensing Public, I'll read this to you. Ministry of Long-Term Care is reviewing a proposal. It's not a proposal anymore, but issuing a long-term care licensing for Southbridge, Exeter for 160 beds. The transfer of 60 existing long-term beds from the Queensway Long-Term Care, which is in Hensel, will be going to this new facility. The transfer of 63 existing long-term beds of Seaforth Long-Term Care will be moving to this new building, subject to the approval of the transfer. The closure of these two long-term facilities will be following the full development of the replacement home. Why the residents and the residents who are currently there, the workers and the public is very upset? It's because they felt they've been completely held in the dark. And I want to make sure, Jess, that this gets in the minutes, because a few times we've talked about this, it never actually ended up in the minutes. Here's why the public feels they were left out in the dark and hung out to dry. The Ministry of Long-Term Care conducts ongoing consultations to gather public input before deciding on licensing proposals for long-term care. Licensing transitions include transferring a license from one new owner to another, transferring location, which is in the case of us, transferring a location. These consultations are for everyone, including long-term care home residents, family, staff, and community members to provide their opinions on the proposed license transaction related to the long care term. So the questions they're asking is, nobody at Arc Manor knows this is happening. Who contacts, if you're waiting for Southbridge, the owner of the building, who contacts the 60 employees out there? Who contacts the residents? Where's the public meeting for their input on this? That's why they feel they've been hung out to dry. No one's contacting them, and yet the government of Ontario, the province, they're going ahead with all this stuff behind closed doors with absolutely no input from the people running that home or living in that home. Now, I know you couldn't say anything to us. You said, oh, it was in closed session, but it was a good meeting. I don't know what to say, but these residents now are in the process of getting petitions. They want to contact CTV News. They want to demonstrate. I mean, they feel that they were out there left to dry, Mr. Mayor, and I don't know what to tell them. I tell them that I brought it up. Councillor Fisher's brought it up. Councillor Joe Stetler before that's brought it up. We've asked for a meeting with the mayor, CAO, Lisa Thompson. The meeting was held, but I'm sorry, all I can tell you was it was a good meeting. I don't know where to go with this anymore.
As far as the consultation process, that would be with the province, not with us. That is not in our bailiwick because it's the province that determines whether they can move or not. So the province takes care of all of that. I was well aware of the fact that beds were moving, but that isn't stopping us from having a new home. And we still have ongoing talks, and we've had some good talks, and we're talking about even more than just having a new home. But I can't go any farther with it, and I was well aware of not only the home going out in the Epsom area. I even know the financial background about why it even got pushed through to the time that it did, and how much even the province is helping out with the whole project. There is a lot of stuff that we know, and unfortunately, there may be some frustrated people, but those frustrated people at this point, Southbridge themselves and the province are the people that they are going to have to deal with, because I can't give them the answers. I can't share what I know at this point. And even what I know at this point, although it's hopeful, there's certainly no guarantee. But we even had, and I'm thinking, it was the Tuesday before I went away on holidays. We had another meeting, and it was one of the head honchos from Southbridge came here and sat with Brad and I, and we had quite a conversation. We took a long drive, looked at some property. But I cannot go beyond that at this point, and there's still other things we are discussing.
So is there a reason why we as a council can't go in closed session to talk about the items that you say you can't talk about? At least inform us what's going on. I mean.
I'm gonna say absolutely yes, and based on the information that we get in some of those sessions that the county put on for all the municipalities, is that if you have a closed session at one of your board meetings, you still can't go into a closed session at a council meeting and share that information.
That wasn't a board meeting. you had
No,
with
no,
Lisa and.
we were specifically asked, this was confidential information, and that's the only way we even got it. Was it was being shared as confidential information to us. So I'm gonna say, I do not, at this point, have the authority to share that information.
Now, I did explain to the people that were at the meeting last night that it's a private owned business. The municipality does not own it. However, the municipality has been trying to get the parties together. And that's all I can tell them. But then they go ahead and they read all this online. Because it's public knowledge, right? And they're fit to be tied. And I can't blame them.
And at this point, certainly the workers, if they want someone to contact, they certainly should be contacting their employer. And if members of the public or the residents in the home have any concerns, then certainly the province is where, because it's the province is the only one that has the authority to allow them to move the beds to another.
I don't think the province is following their own guidelines when it comes to consultation. Because no one's been contacted there at all.
I'm a little surprised at this one. We were made well aware of the other one a long time ago, that it was happening. Certainly Brad and I knew with our conversations. Did not know about this one as a fact. Councilor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To back up what Councilor Chartrand has said, my next door neighbor has been a 40-year employee at the manor. And I spent an hour chatting with her Saturday. And all they're hearing is rumors. They've had no consultation and they've had no information from Southbridge about what's going on or the future going forward. When Councilor Chartrand read that to me earlier this evening, I was quite surprised. Because I had a lengthy conversation with Mayor Finch from South Huron about asking him what was happening. And he said that Southbridge came to them. They did not solicit Southbridge. And we had a meeting with them in February 20, as you'll remember, up at the family health team. And the impression I got leaving that meeting was that they were more than willing to build on a 2-acre piece of property that we said we could attain for them quite reasonably from the hospital trust, and the hospital trust was willing, et cetera, et cetera. And then COVID hit, and then nothing happens, and now we have this, so it's very disconcerting, Mr. Mayor. And as Councilor Chartrand said, how do we explain to the public that we know nothing?
I think Councilor Chartrand said it properly, is the fact it's a privately owned business.
Yeah.
It's not something that we have authority over. And the other partner in that privately owned business is the province who does the licensing. And again, we have no authority over that licensing. And I do remember the whole discussion we had, and we were trying to see if we get 128 bed in here. Guess what, since COVID, They won't even build places that small anymore. In
Right.
fact, Exeter is the last one that's gonna be as small as the one in Exeter.
Exeter's 160 and Goderich is 180 or something.
192.
190, something like that.
Yeah. Anyway, but the public knows we've had these meetings and discussions. That's where it's
We're,
hard to explain, Mr. Mayor, that's all.
and if you, and if you want to share the fact that, we've been meeting both with the province and with Southbridge, to see what could be accomplished, but that we just can't share details at this time. I'm fine for having you say that.
Thank you.
Councilor Stepler.
Yeah, so a couple things on, Mike, did I hear correctly that this will be the last one in Exeter and Goderich?
No.
Okay, because I thought I just heard this will be the last one that's built like that one.
Oh, of that size.
Bed count.
Bed count.
Right, so I think the minimum is 100 beds or
192, I think it is now.
So, okay. So are we prepared? We hired an economic development officer. Are we prepared to deal with one person, one group as Southbridge and Southbridge alone? Or would we be in best interest to start soliciting this land that we may have at a, whatever Councillor Fisher said in a deal, to start bringing something, so if they don't choose this, and according to the thing, it's already a proposal of getting rid of our staff or people. That we owe it to our constituents to at least look for another licensee to bring something to our area. Doesn't have to be Southbridge. I know it's easier for staff transitions and that, but we can't be caught without a bride at the dance.
Okay, and I'm trying to be polite, but who would you be calling? Because I'll tell you, I learned a lot in some of these meetings over the last little while. Southbridge has grown about 4 times in size with new facilities since COVID started, or just prior to COVID starting. No other agency in the province has expanded, period. They're not even looking to. Southbridge is the only one, and they seem to be doing something right, and the province is happy with what they're doing. That seems to be able to move forward. But it's not even the fact that the province does have to do the final licensing. I don't think that's much at all to get the license. It really comes down to dollars and cents and what can be made to work. And whoever's going to invest in it to make the dollars and cents work, because it's not Southbridge that puts the money in. It's other people that put the money in to make projects like this work. It's a whole ball game over and above just who you're dealing with. And it's the bankers at the end of the day that say yea or nay.
I respect that. I just don't want to be going back to our constituents and our people saying, sorry, we tried. And really, we haven't done anything. Other than go to meetings.
And what gets me is even before the Exeter one came to be, there was comments made, oh, you're in county, you're overbid already. You're overbid. You reported that. Meanwhile, we're putting a brand new one in Goderich, we're putting a brand new one in Exeter, but yet we're overbedded. And the premier promised 30,000 additional beds in Ontario. Because of the poor conditions through COVID of what was happening at these retirement homes. That just doesn't jive.
And whether it jives or not, at the end of the day, according to the province, we are over-serviced in that area for the population that we have. That's a fact from the province, and Lisa confirmed to me that that's still the opinion.
They have a waiting list at our home in here.
I'm not disputing it. But the bottom line is that it doesn't matter whether you're underserved or overserved. If somebody comes along and says, we've got the finances to do it, and the province is willing to license it, then the bottom line is they can basically build it where they want to build it. And for whatever reason, it's been a good business model at the moment to build one in Goderich and to build one in Exeter. So Huron County is looking favorable to Southbridge. And in my opinion, it's not a lot different than when we talked with, I can't remember their name off the top of my head anymore, Barry, the water and sewer.
Jacobs.
So with Jacobs, because they've got some other clients in the relative area, that when we're short staffed, they can rob or share back and forth. And it's the same thing in the nursing home. And I confirmed with the gentleman from Southbridge that that's always something they look at and consider. That having things in a pocket works out well for them. But it may be unfortunate, but what I know, I can't share. And we're not the people to answer those questions to the public. It's the employer or the province. I understand they're frustrated. But certainly for the employees, that's not my job to answer their question. They have an employer. That's who they should be hiring.
Somebody from the province who does the licensing ought to be questioning the owner of the building as to why there was no input per their rules, per the province rules. Why wasn't there any consultations? I know it's not our job to do that, but somebody from the province should be asking that. That was not done.
But we do have a responsibility to represent our business, our economics, our people. And if that means moving them, I think we have a responsibility to find out more information.
What do you mean moving them?
Well, they're going to be moving to Exeter Goderich, 60 some people, plus all our staff, which means our employment is going down, which means our long-term care is going out of town. Yeah, we hired an economic development officer. We need to develop our economy, and that obviously is an area that there's no interest in Huron East. Well, in this council area.
We've certainly had someone invest quite a bit of money in the town, hoping to build a similar facility. And we got a road and we got a sewer connection out of it. But there wasn't enough funding there to go ahead with the whole project. So I don't know what kind of budget you think the economic development officer can put forward something like this.
But that position, in my opinion, would be to find those dollars to work with our hospital foundation who would develop the land and to make that viable. Now, again, we're only playing with half the information. There's information that's coming that we don't understand. But if we sit here idle and wait for a decision, I don't think we're representing our Huron East constituents very well.
Councillor Fisher, working with the Hospital Trust Foundation, which we have been doing again, trying to see what we could accomplish. How well did that work out the last time we sat down with them?
I didn't think it was that bad, Mr. Mayor, if that's what you're inferring.
What I'm referring to is when we sat in the meeting, we actually told Southbridge we donate land.
Yeah.
And we were under the impression the Hospital Trust, they were in favor of that. And when Southbridge walked out of the room, they said, no, by the way, you guys are paying for it. You can give it to them if you want. I was there for that part of the meeting, for sure.
I thought that was, the amount was negotiable though, I thought.
Not my understanding, and certainly not my understanding this time around either.
Yeah, I've had no interaction with them for 3.5 years, Mr. Mayor, so I don't know.
Anyways, I hear the comments you have, but it's not something that I believe we can do any more than we're doing at this point. We don't have any authority to do anything specific, but we are trying to bring people together to make it happen.
Thank you.
Still under other boards, committees, meetings, or seminars. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I never know if, I wish you could change some of those titles to councilors' issues, or so I know when to interject.
Okay.
Thank you. 2 things, please. Many more comments about garbage, which I just love answering the phone at 8 o'clock in the morning about. And I continue to tell people, wash them out, freeze stuff, compost, et cetera, but I still get kickback on Pampers and doggy doos when they're picking up stuff after the walk and et cetera. My other question would be, Mr. Mayor, to Jessica, please, or if we could go in camera at our next council meeting to talk about 3 property issues, and I would discuss them with Jessica and CAO to see if they were relevant or not, certainly before the council meeting.
Okay.
If that's possible. Thank you.
Yeah, as long as it's in time for them to make any change to the agenda if they need to.
Yeah. Oh, do we have?
Yeah.
We have almost 3 weeks, I think. Our August meeting is later because we're only having one, so I think we have a lot of time.
Okay.
Thank you.
You said you had two issues, sir.
Yeah, the garbage
Okay. was
from
the
the
other one.
constituents.
Yeah.
I'm not divulging your number yet.
Any other, things under this section, committees, meetings, seminars? No. Any requests by members? Councilor Sharkey.
Yes, I would like to request some information that kind of gets in line with what we were talking about earlier. I would like a report to understand all of our current loans that we have currently. How much is it? What's the interest? What's the timing? And what are all of our other future potential loans? So we have all of that in one package. So we know exactly going forward, just exactly how much money and for what project that we plan on borrowing money for. Because we heard short-term loans for fire department, for school there. We hear this, we hear that, I want one report to understand where we are currently borrowing money and what our future plans are to borrow money. If they could bring that forward at a future council meeting.
And certainly report of what you're asking for doesn't sound like a big deal, and I think we can get that pretty easily. Stacy, can you please correct me, but at the moment, the only thing that has been approved by council from a debenture standpoint or loan standpoint is either just an increase to the operating, which is used for very short term, or the money that we're talking about for the BMG. Are those not the only funds that we're talking about going forward from today? I don't know of any other specific debenture that's been approved.
I have to go back and look at the budget, but they're all in the budget, the short-term financing.
Yeah, there's a lot of short-term ones, and then there's some old debentures that I think we're still paying off.
Oh, yeah, but they would be part of the list you already asked about.
They should be all on that one list, so that we have an idea, but especially with some of the new councils, they don't know all the other debentures that we've already approved in 2020 or 2019 or whatever. It'd be nice to have a one snapshot look at all of them.
Okay, no, that's a reasonable request, so. Just a listing of all of our current and anticipated future borrowing needs.
Thank you.
I did have one under requests for members. I'm told that we may again have a staffing problem at the Banastra day camp. I'm told that we pay just over $15 an hour for our help there. Blue Water Day Camp and $20 an hour. And I'm also told that unfortunately, we don't even offer a lot of either equipment or toys or whatever to keep the kids even occupied during the day. As the comment was passed on to me, you can only play with Lincoln logs for so long. I would like somebody to come back. The unfortunate part is if we lose some of these staff, and I'm told that is a very serious consideration at the moment. But if we lose them and we're not back here for at least 3 more weeks, well, basically summer camp's over. It's too late.
That's something that Lisa Berard should be looking into then, because she's ran the daycare.
Yes, our director of community services can look into that.
Yeah, she needs to look into it, and she should, if she wants to give me a call prior to then. Or even if she waited till Brad was back, but I don't want us to have a bad reputation and then not have, because I'm told we're not even building it up now.
Been a huge money revenue for years that I've been on that committee. They make anywhere $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 at a day camp, summertime.
Well, if that's the case, I got a problem. We're only paying 75% of what our neighbor municipality is paying. And if we don't even have enough toys and stuff for all the kids.
That's why I say Lisa's the expert.
But I am told right now that there's openings. If you just want to phone up, you can be in there tomorrow. So if Lisa would, and if she wants to get a hold of me, absolutely, she can do that. Councilor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Did we not pass? I'm trying to remember, Councilor Lau and I talked about it and made the motion that we would pay living wage to all our employees. Part-time and full-time. I thought we passed that.
That came up in the pay equity and it came up in a personnel meeting way back when.
Yeah,
Like, you may have wanted to do that, but the bottom line is you can't do the bottom end without adjusting every single person's pay in the municipality. Because it's got to be based on a point system. That's the law. So if you want to give everyone a 30% raise at the bottom, then give everyone a 30% raise right across the board.
I thought we could. Okay,
But pay equity is.
But that's.
I'm not talking pay equity, I'm talking living wage, and I thought we said we would pay living wage to all our employees, and things were adjusted at that time.
And at that time, there was only 1 or 2 employees that wasn't getting living wage. I remember the conversation that we had.
Yeah, I thought it included
It had
part-time.
nothing to do with pay equity.
And that goes into lifeguards too.
Go ahead, Danny.
Just because we're paying a living wage doesn't mean that we're paying the same as the next municipality.
No,
Maybe they've got their grids set that they are $5 more. Like, we still could be putting it the living wage, but that doesn't mean that the next municipality doesn't pay more.
Yes.
I was just gonna say, this is all gonna be probably sought out and confirmed and dealt with in our pay equity review, which is currently underway. So these questions of living wage and pay equity, these are already being dealt with what we've already approved. So it will be coming back with an answers on what our pay equity and living wage would be. And there was never adjustments made for living wage from what we can tell in our records. I think the questions come up previously, and there's been nothing actually set out that we had a living wage at one point.
You know, during the last term of council, living wage was, it's like $17.12, although I think it's gotta be pretty close to 20 or better now.
12.
Yeah.
and when we approved it, when John Lau was on personnel meeting with us, we approved it way back when, and it was 17.25 or something like that. But I'm sure that if you check back in the minutes of the personnel, minutes that the motion passed. Pay our employees at least a minimum of a living wage.
I do not recall that, but staff says they've looked, but they could try again if they just want to check the personnel file or meetings. Was there any other requests by members at this point? Any notice of motions? Any announcements? That's or no.
This weekend is the 51st annual Brussels basketball tournament. It'll be held in Ethel and Brussels, 16 teams since their 51st annual, so come out and enjoy some baseball.
Okay.
You can watch from your backyard.
Was that close?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is listed under the announcements. We just want to take a moment to recognize Kathy Garrett, Public Works Planning Assistant for the past 23 years, whose last day with the municipality will be August 1st. Prior to amalgamation, Kathy worked at the town of Seaforth for 11 years. We wish Kathy all the best in her next adventure. She will be missed. Now, I saw Kathy on Thursday down at Jan's plaque thing, and I was gonna give her heck because she was leaving, but I just didn't have time because I had another schedule I had to get going. I will stop in and see her before the first, and you can warn her I'm not happy with the fact she's leaving. I was told she was gonna stay for at least a couple more years.
Please come in and give her.
Okay. Is there any other business that council wants to discuss this evening? Actually, Jessica, I'm almost lost in all the extra things that we've been asked tonight, and I don't really want to wait for the next council meeting, but how hard would it be to kind of summarize the requests that we've asked to come forward in future reports, just in an email to all of council? That would be good, just because to make sure we didn't miss anything. If we did miss something, please contact me. Don't bombard Jessica.
It's okay.
Okay. But let's try and make sure that we've got them all on the books now, going forward. We're in the bylaws. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Wilby, second by Councillor Dalton, that be it hereby resolved. Bylaw 49 of 2023, a bylaw to repeal bylaw 91 of 2021, being a bylaw to authorize a funding agreement with the municipality of Morris Turnberry for the municipal portion of the Brussels Morris and Gray Community Center renovations be given first, second, third, and final readings, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? Carried. Mover and a seconder for bylaw 50, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Deal, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 50 of 2023, a bylaw to authorize a development agreement with Christie Welsh for 649 Fishley, I hope I pronounced that right, Street, Brussels, be given first, second, third, and final readings, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? Carried. Bylaw 51. Mover and seconder, Councillor Deal, Councillor Steffler, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 51 of 2023, a bylaw to authorize an agreement for the Rural Economic Development Program to give first, second, third, and final readings as signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those, Councillor Fisher, you had a
How
question?
much is it, Mr. Mayor? I couldn't find that when I listened.
This is I'm sorry, my apologies to you, Mayor. This is the grant that was applied through by the Economic Development Officer, and I believe it was 10,000. That's for the video and marketing.
Thank you.
I think every municipality can request up to 10,000.
Yes.
Yeah. That's correct. Yeah, okay. All in favor? Motion carries. For a seconder for bylaw 52, Councillor Wilby, Councillor Deal, that be it hereby resolved, bylaw 52 of 2023, a bylaw to authorize a submission of an application to Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation, OILC, for financing certain ongoing capital works, BMGCC renovation be given first, second, third, and final readings, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? 1, 2, 7. Motion carries. Thank you. And a mover and a seconder for the borrowing of the extra money from the bank when needed. Is the increase in the operating, yearly operating. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Deal. That be it hereby resolved that bylaw 53 of 2023, a bylaw to amend bylaw 1 of 2023, a bylaw to authorize the borrowing of money be given first, second, third, and final readings, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? Motion 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, motion carries. Thank you.
To comment there, your worship, I still very much opposed to, I was against, by the way, so I had to put my hand up, you have to.
Okay.
Very much against, it. When we start borrowing money for equipment, we're heading down a dangerous slope. And I know the theory, what we're being told is that it's just finance until we can start building reserves, we can afford to pay cash, but I just don't see how that's gonna work, because we're gonna borrow money to buy. It's not like we have to buy that gravel truck. I mean, so we put a deadline on the life of the gravel truck, but it's stuff like that. So I reiterated this problem last time, and at least when we start, when the municipality starts borrowing money to purchase equipment, they're going the wrong way. And thank you for your time.
No, not a problem. Hopefully, we'll get a lot of these answers when we get the report that Councillor Sharkran asked for, which should show all of the loans that we've got now and what has been anticipated for the next short term, and see where we stand. There is no closed session this evening, and I need a mover and a seconder for the confirmatory bylaw. Fisher and Ray Chartrian. That be it hereby resolved that bylaw 54/2023, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council be given first, second, third, and final readings, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? Carried. And a mover and a seconder to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Dalton, second by Councillor Deal, that the time now being 8 p.m., the regular meeting do now adjourn until August 8th, 2023 at 6 p.m.